Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
So thanks again to Judge Flanders for a very interesting conversation. I'm not sure I agreed with him and his group on much there about wanting to change our primary system in this state, but you know that election integrity is an issue that we will cover extensively and watch very closely, so stay tuned for more. Speaking of integrity, we go back to some of the greatest people I know down there at the Charlestown Senior Center. We're back with our high integrity Boomer Zoomers. Bill Isabella, tell me who you have with you today.
Well, to my immediate left, Dean Kosaka, and to the left of him is Ken McCord. We also refer to this group as the Jan and Dean of the Senior Center. But please don't ask them to sing. Little old lady from Pasadena is present today, but she's not gonna drive her car. So.
All right, Dean and Ken, I know you've both been with us before, so welcome back to In the Dugout and our Boomer Zoomer segment. Although I gotta admonish all you guys. We're in the dugout, and none of you joined me wearing a cap today.
Well, what's your excuse, Ken?
I didn't want to mess up my hairdo.
It looks awful nice, Ken. I got to tell you, Dean, you don't have much of it to mess up. Bill, you got a beautiful head over there too. So,
Dean, that's a slam, Dean.
Well,
all right, Bill Isabella. So I know your group has talked about this many times over recent months, probably over the last year. The topic today is your senior group's feelings on the Ukraine war with Russia, or the Russia invasion of Ukraine. How do you want to set it up, Bill?
Well, we began by talking about, do we want to necessarily even help Ukraine? This goes back to obviously just about the time that we're talking about helping Ukraine. And we were perplexed by the fact that this is a country that had been refused entry into the EU and the NATO because of their politics. And then we find out not only did that affect us, it also affected what they're doing. They're preventing the Orthodox Catholic Church from doing anything. They've imprisoned anybody that was spoke in deference to the current administration. And now we're having our president and vice president and other people in the administration saying we're going to help them for as long as it takes. We're wondering, well, why is that? Where did they get this permission from?
All right, great point. So, Dean, Bill is basically raising some of the alarm bells that you probably heard notable national columnists like Tucker Carlson raised. Tucker Carlson certainly is not in favor of an open blank checkbook to Ukraine. Doesn't even think we should be helping them much in the first place. Where do you come down on this, Dean?
Well, I think from a strategic point of view, from the point of view of, say, all the citizens in this country, I think we feel like there's a lot of, we're spreading ourselves a little bit too thin here if we go all in on Ukraine. I mean, think about it. We have I don't think we have any formal pacts or treaties with Ukraine, but we do with a lot of other countries. What happens like with, say, Taiwan or Japan or South Korea, or we couldn't help Hong Kong, obviously, with their independence.
Great, Dean. Ken, I've read reports that some military leaders are concerned that even with what we're providing to Ukraine, that we're running dangerously low on our ammunition and weapons stockpiles. And as Dean mentioned, what if we had to go in to help Taiwan, or what if there was a more direct threat? Are you concerned? Forget the checkbook for a minute. Are you concerned from a military preparedness point of view that we might be overextending in Ukraine? Ken.
Absolutely.
Let's ask Ken on that.
And may I add one other thing?
Go ahead.
And the fact that Joe Biden is not well known for his foreign policy prowess. He's been, even his former boss, President Barack Obama, I'll paraphrase him. He says, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to screw things up. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it. You can't necessarily trust his judgment skills at this point.
Well, there's a lot of Republicans and other Democrats who are fully supportive of this open checkbook approach. Ken, where do you come down on this?
Well, in regards to the money situation, that I look around, I'm in Wakefield myself personally. I look around and I see stores that I used to shop in aren't there anymore, or they're different, or that prices are going up, the usual economic situation, price of gas, food and everything like this. And that I have to be careful how I'm spending my money. And if you remember last time I said, in order to compensate for the increase in the cost of a dinner, I had to eliminate dessert, which is very dangerous for me, by the way. Feed me chocolate, no one gets hurt. But anyway, the thing is that what my concern is that how many hundreds of billions would it be dollars have gone into their coffers there? And I want to know where every penny of that has been spent. If you tell me you spent it on a tank, I want to see the tank. If you tell me you spent it on medical supplies, I want to see the medical supplies. That's the part that bothers me the most. That there's an accountability or an oversight that we should simply cut everything off.
Well, I think you make two great points there. One, look at all this money going to Ukraine when citizens like you can't even have their chocolate. I mean, God forbid, right? But anyway, there are Americans who are needy too. So why? And then two, like you just said, Bill. So there is this, even it's bipartisan. It's not just Joe Biden, but there's bipartisan support for open checkbook. You've heard the phrase, anything it takes for as long as it takes. My goodness, is that how did your group feel about it? Do they feel like we should be there with an open checkbook?
Generally speaking, no, but we do have several of us, as a matter of fact, in support of the people that are there. It's horrible what's going on. But all that said, we've got several bullets being aimed at us. Primarily, it's the media. The media jumped all over this and continues to jump all over this. But the East Palestine, the people in Ohio, East Palestine, it took them a week and a half to really make anything of it. Our government is still not committed to doing anything there. We send some of our representatives there. What they've done so far, not a whole heck of a lot. I mean, in addition to all this, Mike, we've got the overwhelming problem, potentially overwhelming problem of China. China is now reportedly going to be helping Russia. So this is no longer a proxy war between us and Russia using the Ukrainian people to shed their blood. We're looking at this bleeding our treasure in this country. This is a major issue. It should not be swept out.
Yeah, and I think more than that, you make a great point with China potentially aiding Russia. That's going to mean one or two things more. We're going to have to send more money and more equipment and ammunition there, or as has recently been suggested, we might have to send our own troops there. So Dean Kosaka, could this possibly turn into a Vietnam out there in Ukraine?
I think it already has. I mean, considering, except we don't have the people getting killed. That's the big thing. That's what makes it I'd say that's what allows people to control their outrage of the spending. At least it's only dollars, not bodies, not people. So, but I agree that it's lasted a lot longer than anyone ever thought it would, and it's still going. So what does that tell you? I don't see an end to it.
No, especially when the two big superpowers get big. It's almost like Ken. Do you believe strongly in what they call it, the industrial military complex, where they want wars, they want conflicts, which means so the government keeps buying, buying weapons and ammunition from these defense manufacturers, and just like Pfizer and Moderna got rich from COVID, government funded these defense cronies will get rich. Do you think there's something to that theory? What's going on here in Ukraine, Ken?
Well, my concern from a military point of view is that we need to stay ahead of the technology, so that if someone is developing a supersonic drone, for instance, that can drop an atomic bomb, that's the least that we should be investigating, not to mention come up with our own. That while my father was a policeman for 24 years, that he also retired from the Army as a lieutenant colonel. So I have a little bit of a military mindset. And even though we've got this tremendous country and two oceans on both sides, that we're not safe, that we need to be prepared. We need to be up to date on how to simply defend ourselves.
Yeah,
I think-
and not weaken our stockpiles at all. Bill, let me ask you this, Bill.
Yes.
There's an alternative approach here. We can try to keep supplying this proxy war, or we could sit down and try to negotiate a peace. Now, Russia, if you're going to have a negotiated peace, probably America, Ukraine's going to have to, you got to have a chip on, you got to be able to play some chips, right? Has Russia, through its it's hostile, it's brutal, it's inhumane, it's probably illegal aggression, but has it earned a trip on the table where in any potential peace settlement, they should say, all right, you know what, we'll give you a little bit of the eastern part of Ukraine as part of a settlement. Should Ukraine and America consider something like that?
Russia has to be at the table. They are the aggressor. They are the ones that are killing people. They have to be at the table. Now,
But
what
do we
they
have to
get
give
out
them
of
a
the
chip
deal-
is what I'm saying.
Well, exactly. Now, what they get out of the deal is they may get out of the deal with simply just being, okay, go away. But before we get to that point, Mike, I think we need to convince the American people. And that's what we talk about here a great deal. We talk about how the media and our government continues to shovel the pile higher and higher and higher towards our thinking that this is a justification for us to go to war with Russia. And I'm upset about that more than anything else. And I think our group is too. We see what potentially could happen, and it's not very, very pleasant. So we need to be mindful of that and stop listening to everybody and think about these things thoroughly before we make
Yeah,
another.
Dean, you were nodding your head at the idea of a peace settlement. Your thoughts on how we might get there?
I think we could still bargain with the fact that Russia already took Crimea.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hey, let them have Crimea without any more arguments over it.
Okay.
All right, so that's the chip to play.
That's my opinion.
Ken,
Because,
Ken, how has your view of Russia changed? Donald Trump, whether it was smart diplomacy or naivety, seemed to think that he could reach out and form some kind of positive alliance with Putin. Of course, he was criticized for a lot of people claimed he wasn't tough enough on Russia, but he was with the pipeline deal in Germany and a lot of other things. But all of that, how has your view of Russia changed? Can they ever be welcomed back into the community of nations?
My concern is not so much Russia, but China. And I'm fearful that any kind of negotiation that we sit down and talk with about the Ukraine, that China is going to be there and they're going to want something about Taiwan. They've always wanted that after World War II. It used to be called Formosa, by the way.
So I think you're right. If there is a peace settlement, while China may not have a seat at the table, they'll have an invisible seat at the table behind Russia for sure. Bill, Isabella, I don't know if your answer or your group's answer, do you think your group, your senior citizens current event groups down there at the Charlestown Senior Center, you boomer zoomers, do you think you're more concerned about Russia or China?
I think in the immediate, it's China. China is the bigger threat. Russia is I'm not saying a non-threat, but Russia is not about to attack us. They know we can easily overwhelm them. And China, one thing they have that we do not have in this country is time and patience. Time and patience is on the side of the Chinese. They've been that's their culture. That's the Chinese culture, that they can wait us out. They don't want to have a shooting war with us. And they know if they give it enough time, they will win it. They will win us economically. And that's the goal.
That's a good point, Bill. And Dean, it's not just about the culture. It's also about the way our democracies are set up. We get a new president and a new foreign policy team and a new foreign policy strategy every 4 to 8 years. They've got a 50-year strategic plan that they are trying to execute. So it's in addition to the culture, they also have a governmental system that allows them to think long-term where we can only think short-term. So in that regard, do you think our form of government hurts us when it comes to long-term geopolitical strategic planning?
It's plus and minus. I think at this point, if the Chinese thought we were not very good at anything, they wouldn't be bothering us.
Right.
In other words, obviously they want to take whatever resources that we have, and one of our biggest resources is intellectual property, and they've been stealing that left and right. If we could cut that off, I think that would put a big dent in their ability to keep
That's a
up.
great point. I've got a friend who was doing some manufacturing in China, and you've probably heard it, but just in case our viewers don't know, that if you're gonna take advantage of low cost and fairly good quality Chinese manufacturing, even if you have a patent or a trade secret, you have to give it to the Chinese
That's correct.
in order for them to do business with you. And that's how they end up stealing a lot of our stuff. All right, Ken McCourt, you get the final word of this Boomer Zoomer segment today. Anything you want on this topic? Go ahead.
All right, with the Chinese influence, it's also an infiltration on their part. That, I don't know if you recall, several years ago, we had FBI confirmation that the so-called Confucius Institute,
Yeah.
which was for Chinese students in the various universities spread across the country.
Man, we
was-
had them here at Bryant and at URI. Yeah.
You are right.
Yes, I
Yep.
know. There was even a water fire up in Providence where it was themed in terms of the Confucius Institute, that they've been infiltrating, getting people in, and then reporting back to the big red
boys.
communist flag there. That it's been going on for a long time. And I think that they used to call these sleeper agents, where they're not seen and not that obvious, but then all of a sudden a light turns on and there they are. Unfortunately, because of our own democratic system, that these people are allowed to be able to propagate, really.
Yeah, what a great point. So in other words, they're spying on us. See, look, whether it's through what you said, through the Confucius centers, whether it's through agents sleeping with United States congressmen or being chauffeurs for United States senators, or whether it's balloons floating over our country, or whether it's them buying up farmland near military sites, you're right. They're very active with their spy game on us. We don't know what I can't imagine we're doing nothing over there. But I don't know what we're doing over there. We've got satellite technology, so do they probably. But anyway, you guys bring up great topics. I want to thank you all for joining us today to talk foreign policy here on Boomer Zoomers. And we'll have you guys back in 2 weeks for our next segment. Bill, Dean, and Ken, thanks a lot for joining me again on In the Dugout.
Thank you,
All right,
Mike.
thank you. Good to be here.
All right, and to our loyal viewers, thank you again for joining us here on In the Dugout. Boomer Zoomers always are fun. It's our favorite part of the week, and we're doing it twice a month, as you know, the first and third Thursdays of every month. So again, thanks for tuning in today. For In the Dugout, Mike Stenhouse out. We'll see you next game. Boom.